Yeah, I try and go overboard with that. I think I might have gone overboard with that with Ava.
Why?
Because when I tell her, Ava, I love you. Dad, I know.
I know, Dad. I know what you're going to say.
I know what you're going to say.
You're like, hey, Ava, guess
She's
what?
like annoyed with it.
She's like this. You love me?
Yeah, you love me.
I'm
And I'm like,
this
no,
kid.
I actually wanted you to come eat dinner.
This kid.
So yeah, we'll see. That will be an interesting experiment. She'll have an issue. My dad was obsessed with me.
Loved me too much. I don't think a kid can say that. Hi, friend. This is Annette.
This is Jared.
And welcome to our Happy Family podcast.
We're passionate about happy, healthy relationships.
And that only happens with happy, healthy people.
So join us each week as we discuss the ingredients of making your own happy family.
Thanks for joining us. Let's jump in. Hello, friends. Welcome to this episode of the Happy Family podcast. So happy to be here, and we're going to chat about something that's very important. We got to chat about one aspect of this last month, and now we're going to dive into the one that's important this month, and that is dads, also known as fathers. Is there another term?
That's good.
Okay. It was Father's Day recently, so we thought it'd be fun to talk about it. So I'm going to start with one of my favorite stories about you as a dad.
All right, let's do it.
And I didn't want to share with you ahead of time so that it would be a surprise.
Oh, wow. All right. Let's go.
Are you excited?
Yes.
A few years ago, I believe, we were outside working in the garden. And Ava was in the garden with us. So at this point, she would be maybe around 3 years old. And this time of year is the time where all the things in Georgia are out and about. We have all sorts of bee type things. We have wasps, we have yellow jackets, we have hornets, we have bumblebees, we have our own honeybees. Then there's other kind of bees. It's quite the buzzing activity, and around the garden also. And a lot of times we've, in a few ways, tried to work with nature. We pretty much leave everything do its thing because the wasps help eat certain things, and they all have like a little cycle, right? So unless they're like super in your way, we haven't been big on killing them, right?
Yeah, that's
we kind of let them do a thing. To the point that like our front porch is like a haven of some of these things.
Yeah.
But it's okay because I don't really go out there. So anyways, we are out there in the garden working. And the thing with yellow jackets is that a lot of times you don't know where they are. They're more like in the ground. They're more hidden. And we were doing something and Ava gets stung by what I think we perceived was a yellow jacket, right? Mm-hmm. And so, of course, I'm doing stuff in the garden, and then I hear her start screaming, and I don't know what's going on. And she's like, something bit me. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, in my I feel like sometimes as a parent, I don't know if someone is listening that is a parent, you can relate. You have this like out of body experience where you're like watching it all. So I'm kind of like in slow motion, like, oh, let me help you. Like I was like processing, okay, what am I going to do? This child just got stung. It's probably going to swell. So in that outer body experience where I'm kind of watching the scene around me, I see Jared like runs over and does something that I had never seen him do before. And honestly, for me, it was a moment like, oh, I married the right person.
Oh, wow. Here we go.
It was like, oh, wow. So Jared, swiftly, before I am capable of doing anything, runs over to her, scoops her up, spits in his hand, reaches into one of the garden beds and grabs like a clump of dirt, spits in it again, like basically makes a paste and slaps it on her leg and rubs it on where this bite happened. Would you like to explain why you did that?
Yeah, I'd been in some class.
What voodoo?
One time, and they said that will help.
I think something with the dirt and they basically clay, yeah, like stops.
It'll like draw poison.
Yeah.
Which I guess is why mud baths work so well for detoxing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Jared does this super dad move, and Ava, it actually didn't even really, she had a mark. You could see where she'd gotten the sting bite, but it did not swell like it would have. All because of Jared's like super dad move running across the garden with the mud. And so that was my like, oh, I liked you a little more that
My
day.
husband knows voodoo.
Yeah, I liked you a little more that day. I was a little more impressed.
All right.
Yeah, Norm, I think you do a great job. But that day I was like, wow.
Like,
This
wow,
was
okay.
like,
All those
man.
wasted seminars.
Oh,
Now it's paying off.
He's learned something. No.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's a fun story. But in all seriousness, I think being a dad is no joke. I think being a mom is no joke. I've expressed, kind of the hard things there are with that. So why don't I just ask you a few dad questions?
All right.
Do you want to do that?
Sure.
I don't know what you'll answer. This could go lots of ways. Okay,
Could
I'll
change
start.
the rating of the show.
This could change the rating.
Could get us canceled.
Okay. What do you feel was the biggest change you experienced in your life when you became a dad?
It was
No
such
pressure.
a different kind of love. Yeah. I think.
Did you expect that, or was it? I mean, people
No,
tell
it
you.
definitely wasn't expected. For the longest time, we were like, we're not having kids.
Yeah.
It was like, maybe we'll have kids. Probably not gonna have kids. People thought we were crazy. And then it's been the greatest thing. So it's just a different kind of love. I think the love you have for like your parents is a type of love.
Mhm.
And the love you have for like your romantic partner is a type of love.
Mhm.
But love for a child, it is a different kind of love. Just like
But
nurture
in
and
how
protection.
how so? Right, like protecting, like you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to protect them. You do anything for them. Not like you wouldn't do that for the other people you love, but with a child, they're just so helpless. So it's like they depend on me to love them, care for them. They are defenseless, I guess.
I feel like no one ever can prepare you for that either. Because you can think about, oh, this will happen when I have a kid, or I might think this. And I really think no one can prepare you until you were there. And then it's like, okay, now I understand better what,
Yeah, and I'd be
people
curious.
say.
I would wager that moms love the first 2 years of life the most with a kid.
I did not.
Okay, well, I'd lose a bet. But I think, for me, it was as soon as she could talk.
Like a little person.
Yeah, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is my friend.
Oh.
And, it's interesting. I knew you wanted a girl, but
Did I?
it to me became like the coolest challenge to have a little girl. Like, okay, I got to raise her as an entrepreneur. I got to raise her as fearless. She's going to run the game.
In a way, it seems harder.
I think that's why it's more fun. So, the type of love. You're not prepared for it, but boy, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Especially to a little girl.
You're a good girl, Dad. She's obsessed. Of course, Dad can do no wrong. I feel like that happens to all little girls. It's like, Daddy's daddy. It's so fun.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. But yeah, okay. What's your favorite thing about being a dad?
Favorite thing?
Yeah.
I would say it's like the thing that also now is like a double-edged sword. I love to play, but now it's like, Dad, let's play.
Like
for 2 hours.
All the time.
Well, I can't do that. No, Dad, 5 minutes. And then 5 minutes is not 5 minutes.
Well, because she negotiates everything.
Yeah. So I love to play. That is definitely the highlight of being around Ava.
Yeah.
Games and play. And I remember like when she was more little, she'd get hurt when we were playing. And I was like, okay.
I was like, Jared,
Be
she's
a
still
little
a small
more
child.
gentle here.
Jared's on the trampoline. And
Just
I'm like,
bouncing
I
her
know.
to
I'm
high
like, Jared,
heavens.
I'm concerned that, it's like,
Glad she survived.
I think moms, maybe by nature, are a little more that, I don't know. I feel like I worry more or think more like, oh, okay, look, be careful what can happen to her or whatever. I think dads are like, wee!
Throw caution to the wind.
Like, yay, whatever happens.
Yeah, I'm surprised she hasn't broken anything.
I know. I'm glad.
That's pretty shocking.
I'm actually,
She's fallen on her head so many times.
yeah. we have concrete floors, by the way. So if you're listening, my fear for, until she could walk and after she could walk was that she was going to have a horrible head injury because we have concrete floors.
And she has fallen a lot.
Yeah, but not like a terrible
No,
one
that's
where, I used to be a nurse, so it was this like thing. But anyways, what do you feel has been the hardest thing of becoming a parent or becoming a dad?
Hardest thing? That's a good question. The hardest thing would be,
or
discipline
least
was
or
hard for a
least
while.
favorite.
In
Okay.
the beginning, we were only talking Spanish to her, and I was trying to play that game. Then it was like there were some concepts I just couldn't explain, and I switched to English, and she kind of switched and never went back with me. Like she doesn't want to talk to me in Spanish.
Yeah.
Discipline, I think, is difficult because I'm like
So
a
hard.
believer in it. I see kids that aren't disciplined, and it's like that's trouble. And so I think seeing her emotions as she's disciplined and like pleading, no, I don't want to be disciplined. and like her discipline is so
I know.
soft
We're
core.
like,
It's like go in the room by yourself.
we call it.
No! Murder! Other kids are getting beat with belts. No,
She's not being raised how we were raised.
we're pansies over here.
We've been a little soft.
Yeah, but I mean, it works.
We have
she would rather us beat her with a belt.
I think
She's
so.
literally said that. Your parents spanked them. Why don't you just do that with me?
So basically with her, we've done this thing called simmer time. So not time out. I guess time out, the difference would be you go in a corner. I don't know, for a certain amount of time.
We're wimps.
I don't know. Simmer time's supposed to be where they have to go somewhere for a certain amount of time and then they can't see you.
That's right. So we basically send her to Guantanamo.
No, which
in
our
her
house,
bedroom.
we don't have that much. Our house doesn't have that many rooms, nor is there a space that's like basically we have windows everywhere. There's no like confined solitude
our
space.
bedroom
So our bedroom on the bed
is Guantanamo Bay.
is to her
We send her there,
simmer time.
and she has to be there with the door closed by herself, no talking, can't get off the bed.
Yeah.
And it works, and it drives her crazy. Ava, one day when you watch this, I want you to know it worked.
She's like, don't send me in.
No,
How
don't do
long
it.
do I
I
have
wanna
to
do
be
it.
in simmer time? I'm like, well, and she has to be quiet.
And then she has to tell us, this is what I did. This is why I'm here. This is why I'm sorry for what I did. We're so lenient, but boy, it works.
It has worked to a degree. She had to do it yesterday. Did you hear what she said yesterday?
Don't send me there again.
Because Jared, she was doing something. And Jared's like, Ava, do we need to do simmer time? She's like, no, I already did it today.
I'm like, you can go twice in one day. Dad, you're so mean. That's great.
So that's interesting. Is there anything that's like, I don't know if this is a good way to phrase it. That's might be the hardest thing for you emotionally, but is there anything that's just not like, anything that's like a least favorite? Is that the same question?
I mean, yeah, I think it's discipline.
For you,
But I mean,
okay.
to her, like, it's been when she's just pled with me with tears streaming, trying to explain herself.
Yeah.
And, you want to hear somebody out when they're just bawling and crying.
Oh, it's so
You
hard.
make me so sad. And you're like, oh, okay, well, did I do something wrong here? But then it's like, okay, let's talk through this. And then you realize, oh, that one day hits you. This girl is smart. She's a manipulator.
Oh, she is. She totally manipulates.
Getting worked here. So, yeah, I would say disciplining is hard, but it's been very much a bonding thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Do you feel like you were disciplined a lot as a kid? Do you feel like it worked?
I mean, that's one of those questions where I'm like, oh, yeah. And my mom would say, like, no, not enough. Or my dad would probably say that too. But I mean, I got a belt a few times, and boy, you remember
But did
that.
it help, you feel like?
I mean, as I look back, I should have been punched in the face for some of the behavior that I exhibited.
Oh, dear.
I'll never forget. I don't know why I just remember this, but I'm in high school playing Sony PlayStation with a friend of mine. And my dad walks in and says, hey, you didn't do that thing I asked you to do. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it later. He's like, I asked you to do it. This is the deal. Yeah. And I'm basically being disrespectful.
Yeah.
I'm ignoring him. And he says, okay. Reaches down, grabs the PlayStation, rips all the cords, and chucks it in the pool. And I'm like that kid. You ever seen that kid who's person runs over their games with the
Oh yeah,
the
that like
lawnmower.
from years ago,
Oh,
and
no
they
more
like lose it.
games.
Yeah.
So, when you get into the addiction world, which at this time, I guess I was addicted to video games, I'm just like, oh, no, you didn't. Oh, of course, what do? Rather than go just do the thing, I jump in the pool, swim to the bottom of the
So
pool to get
lame.
the PlayStation and dry it out. And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, my dad should have broke it. He should have
He
sledgehammered
should
that
have
thing.
just said you
So
can't.
let me
Yeah,
tell you
you couldn't
something,
use it anymore.
boy.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's that delicate
I was
thing.
just curious of how you were disciplined. If you feel like it made an changed any way of how you've then disciplined your kid, or if you felt like
no, I mean, I'm not like traumatized or anything. I mean, I think
Yeah.
for me, we've gotten some people thought we were crazy for this wimpy discipline we have. But me, it's like if it's painful to the kid and it makes them not want to
Yeah.
misbehave, it's working.
So for me, interestingly, as a child, anyways, I'll go back into parenting. We should do an episode on just discipline. Like we have an opinion. But for me, if they spanked me, I was like, whatever.
Right.
Like it did nothing for me.
That's why
But
I'm
if-
afraid with Ava. She's like
that. Yeah. But if they sat me down and it was like, we're disappointed, and I was like, it was I did not like the conversations. I feel like Ava's like that.
I see.
So
I
anyways.
can see that.
What's something in general like of parenting that you feel like you learned from your dad or that you enjoyed from your dad or time spent that you feel like you want to apply to her?
Yeah. So I think that's definitely, we're in the moment of that right now. And she doesn't yet get it. She's got to understand there's time for work and time for play.
Yeah.
And I think my dad was pretty good about that.
Okay.
I'm working and then we will play. And when we played.
And you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And we played to the nth degree. So I've tried to be really clear with her. Like there will be a time for
She's
play.
still little,
but it's
I
not
think.
all day. And
Yeah.
but
she's
yeah,
still
my dad
little.
was good at that. I mean, he worked his tail off and he played well. Probably, I was thinking the other day, like they got a pool when I went off to college.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I don't think that pool got enough use. Like now that I know about pools and,
Sure.
with Ava's age, I'm like, I just think
It's so expensive,
But I think it aired on working too much.
I know it's hard
So
though.
it's a delicate thing.
Yeah.
And, people have lots of opinions on this, but here's what I do know. Most of the men I know that grind die young.
Or like, what do you have to show at the end? It's like,
Yeah, your health goes or something
Right.
goes, and it's like, well, you gotta take your health first and foremost.
Yeah.
So serious
mm-hmm.
for so many reasons. And then you can work and play hard much longer.
Well, and I think we've talked about like with you, just the thought of how to be like mentally in a healthy place and not having like this critical inner voice and all these things. And for you, it's always been, is this the best use of my time? Is this the best use of my time? So you having to say, hey, sitting here and spending time with her is the best use of my time right now. Not having to think like I have to just keep working.
Yeah, it's true. I had that recently. I was going to go on a trip. I knew I'd be out of town for like 4 days. And it was like the afternoon of the day before. And I'm like, I probably should be catching up on some different office work stuff. And Ava's like, let's go swim. I was like, you know what? Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's go swim. And it was fun because in the moment I felt like this is the best use of my time.
That's good.
Even though it was like 30-minute window, it's like to her, that was the world.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not going to see her for 4 days. Like,
and she remembers that. And I think it's the thought, you kind of get like, ugh, there's those things. I don't know if it's a meme or post people make, but to the essence of like, this is the last time they'll be
young,
this age.
That's right. Ever.
Or the last, you don't repeat today. So this could be the last, or one thing said, this might be the last time you pick them up. I was like,
oh, that's fascinating.
Like at some point they'll be too big to pick up.
That's true. It's fascinating. I was thinking about that the other day. Like to those who have a worldview that encompasses the supernatural and paradise, heaven, all these things.
Yeah.
It's like you can imagine all these scenarios, but there is one thing that, at least from the biblical worldview, does not get repeated: childhood. I'm like, man, you want to cherish this. This is the only time I'm going to have a little girl who's little. Make it count.
Sometimes if I think about it too much, it honestly makes me a little, I don't know, because then it's
I
like,
understand.
It's like, oh, am I doing, like my critical inner voice is, am I doing enough? Like, are you doing enough? Are you doing? And so sometimes I'm like, oh man, she is, so little. So it's a balance. I mean, it is finding a balance.
Also shows you how fragile kids are, why they're so impressionable.
Mm-hmm.
And so many kids are affected, particularly by their dads. I think I've shared that thing before about a very influential individual asked all these billionaires, what drives you? And the majority of them, like 70%, I'm trying to prove my dad wrong.
I know.
So most successful people haven't had a good dad.
Yeah.
Or dad experience.
Or,
and they're trying to prove something, or it's like, so, dads are a key role.
Yeah.
And it sounds like most of the time dads fail.
It's just wild,
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you have, I think we've got some pointers, I think, that are really good. We should talk through about
Maybe
some
put the mic
things.
Closer to your mouth. I was just
Oh,
thinking about
some
that.
things. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. But what is, do you have, like, if there was like the one thing of advice that you would give a dad or a new dad, or maybe a dad that's been a dad? I think sometimes it's good to learn from each other. Obviously, everyone has different ways of doing things, and every child is different or whatever, but
Yep. The one
like
piece of
your
advice I would definitely, hands down, dads need to prioritize their health.
because you feel like if they're healthy, then
If they're healthy, their marriage is better. If they're healthy, their sex life is better.
Mm-hmm.
If they're healthy, they can run around with their kids. If they're healthy, they're not sick, and therefore their kids aren't having to care for them, or their spouse or their family. And that's just physical health, really.
Well, I think I would say physical health, but also mental health.
Well, yeah, no, I was saying that's just physical health. Then you go into the mental health realm, which I'm a big believer. If you don't have good physical health, I think it's affecting your mental health. And then spiritual health is a whole different animal.
So anyway, we always talk about mental, physical, spiritual. Those are three that are always mentioned when you talk about, right, like the full circle. They really all kind of are important or go together.
And then I think if you are prioritizing those things, you're likely not susceptible to the weapons of modern culture, which I would say most are targeted at dads. Porn, addiction, which I guess those could be similar, but like drug addiction, alcohol addiction, sports addiction, gambling addiction, video game addiction. All these outlets that are unhealthy, unsustainable, and are ruining dads.
Yeah.
Any of them. And a work addiction, that's another one.
Yeah.
So whatever the thing may be, it's like, if you're doing something and it's detrimental if you keep doing it, find help. Because your family is counting on you. Your kids are especially counting on you to be someone they respect, look up to, and you're not abusing the position of a father, which I think most are.
Right.
They're not living up to that.
Well, that standard.
Or
whatever
sadly.
One thing I was thinking when you were talking about just in general, or when I was asking you about one piece of advice and you were saying, about health, take care of your health. One thing I would say, which I'm not a dad, but that I feel like I hear a lot from people I know, or I've heard when I've been around people I don't know, is that their dad never told them they loved them or hugged them enough. And that there's something to that.
Oh, yeah.
It's just amazing how, because I'm just saying, no, dad's perfect. You're going to have moments where you're going to, fail, or maybe have some of these problems, or maybe have some of these addictions, or maybe not be the healthiest. There's all these things. But if you can show up for your kid and let them know you love them, I just feel like that's so important. Just to just be present in that way as well. That's just something you hear a lot. My dad never told me he loved me.
Yeah, you're right. I've heard it a lot.
Or the next one, my dad never told me he was proud of me.
Yeah.
I think are the two things that you hear more so of people who are adults and are kind of going back and saying, wow, if there's something from my childhood I could change, or if there's something your parents did or didn't do. And a lot of times with a dad, I think it's those things,
Well, that's
didn't
why
spend time with me, never told me they were proud of me, and didn't tell me they loved me. And the dad might have not known. Maybe they were thinking, hey, I'm working, I'm providing, I'm doing all. And, I don't have to do that.
That's a lame excuse. That's most of these ambitious millionaires and billionaires that define what's the thing that drives you, proving my dad wrong, which means trying to prove that I was worthy of his love or that he was proud of me.
Yeah. So it's like, it's easy. Like, I'm not saying it's easy, but just.
Yeah, I try and go overboard with that. I think I might have gone overboard with that with Ava.
Why?
Because when I tell her, Ava, I love you. Dad, I know.
I know, Dad. I know what you're going to say.
I know what you're going to say.
You're like, hey, Ava, guess
She's
what?
like annoyed
She's like this. You love me?
Yeah, you love me.
Like,
I'm like, no, I actually wanted you to come eat dinner.
This kid.
So yeah, we'll see. That will be an interesting experiment. She'll have an issue. My dad was obsessed with
Loved me too much. I don't think a kid can say that. Yeah. I don't think a kid can say that. A couple things, and we won't make this very long, but I did think this was interesting. A few notes we made on the issue with, I don't have enough time, or, everyone's so busy, like how to be intentional. It says, when you play with them, try to do things that they enjoy, or really try to find out things about, what they like or don't like, so that when you're spending that time, whether it's, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 5 minutes, you're doing something that's very enjoyable to them. And so it's more likely to be, memorable.
Totally.
And something, you talk about all these core memories. A lot of times core memories for kids are not the super lavish things. It's really just spending that time doing those things that they love.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. Recently I've been thinking to myself, I try and challenge myself. Anything Ava asks, I'm trying to say yes. So the other day,
we're just yes parents. We don't say no ever.
The other morning, I got dressed. I was out of my office. It starts pouring rain, and she says, "Dad, we have to run outside in the rain." And I'm like, "Ava, I just got dressed. I have a good excuse here." She said, "But Dad, it's so fun to run in the rain." Oh. So she's stripping down naked, and I'm like, "Let's do this." So
that was cool. You're good about that. I feel like I can learn from you and some of those things on spontaneity. I think sometimes for me as a mom, because I'm with her all the time, I think I lose some of that, because in my mind, I'm like, there's things we have to do. Like, I can't play all the time.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes it's like, okay, I got to tell myself, like, it's okay. Like, just do this, So I do appreciate that you do that with her.
Well, to be fair, though, when you're with her, the productivity meter is doing well. When I'm with her, nothing gets done.
But that's probably for all day. I mean, I would say that's all day.
Do we get anything? What do you mean? You get anything? Play. So,
I mean, true, probably, but it's okay. Hey, I was recently out of town. I don't know, on and off for a fair amount, and I didn't know what to expect when I came home. Jared is incredible. He's like, "Oh, I did the laundry. Oh, I did." I was like, "Well, then I should just leave more often." I'll let you do everything. No, just kidding. The last thing here, it said, know what your child can and cannot do. So understand their abilities and limits so that they can engage in that good quality time with you.
Good.
And enjoy the moment and be present. I think the main thing, and this is something I do and we should all do, is just to be present, like not on your phone. If you're going to sometimes I will just set a timer and tell her, hey, like, let's have this undivided time. I'll put my phone away. Seems lame, but in this day and age, like for me, I do my job on my phone half the time. It's like we're doing stuff. So just be intentional in spending that time with your kid, to letting them know, you love them, you care for them, you're committed to them, So yeah, dads, you can do it.
We can do it. Go dads.
It's dads
High
are
calling.
So important. It's such a wonderful thing. Just be present and be the best you can be. And hopefully, your kids will know that and appreciate that. And I think they will. But yeah. Okay. I won't blab on any longer.
Okay.
That's good enough.
That's what we got.
So thank you for listening, and we will be back next week.